Welcome back to English in the Wild. I'm Sarah, and today we are diving into a topic that usually makes people's blood pressure spike: politics and governance. But we aren't here to argue, Mark. We're here to look at the language of political thought.
Exactly, Sarah. In the professional and academic world, being able to discuss different viewpoints calmly is a massive skill. When we look at global politics, the traditional model divides ideas into the left wing and the right wing of the political spectrum.
Right. And to put it simply for our language learners, the left generally focuses on social equality, collective responsibility, and state intervention in things like healthcare. The right, on the other hand, typically prioritizes individual liberty, free markets, and limited government interference to drive the economy.
Spot on. But when you want to figure out what is actually best for a nation, many modern thinkers are turning back to an ancient philosophy: Stoicism. Stoics believe in looking at the world objectively, focusing on what we can control, and working toward the common good using logic instead of raw emotion.
I love that connection. A Stoic approach to politics means stepping back from political tribalism or party lines and asking a fundamental question: what policies actually yield the best results for human flourishing?
Yes, it's about being pragmatic rather than ideological. For example, when discussing the economy, a right-leaning Stoic might argue that a free market creates wealth and independence, while being open to seeing where state support keeps the foundation stable. It's about balance.
It's about keeping an open mind. In this chapter, we are going to explore how we talk about economics, healthcare, and governance by looking past the labels and focusing on the underlying ideas. All right, Mark, let's talk about money and markets. If you look at the right-wing economic philosophy, the core engine is free market capitalism and laissez-faire policies. Can you break down what those terms actually mean in practice?
Absolutely. Laissez-faire is a French phrase we use in English to describe an economy where the government keeps its hands off. The idea is that minimal regulation, lower taxes, and private enterprise spark innovation, create competition, and generate wealth because people are free to risk their own capital.
Right. It relies on the concept of individual incentive. But a critic from the left-wing perspective would argue that an entirely unregulated market can lead to monopolies or a severe wealth gap. Their solution is often state intervention or regulatory safety nets to distribute resources more evenly.
And this is exactly where the Stoic approach becomes incredibly useful. Instead of getting locked into an ideological battle of private versus public, a pragmatic thinker looks at the data. They ask, how can we balance individual economic freedom with the stability of the entire society?
Exactly. It's about finding the sweet spot where fiscal responsibility meets public utility. For example, a country might use free markets to drive tech innovation and job creation, but use targeted regulations to ensure fair competition.
Precisely. You don't have to abandon your principles to acknowledge that an economic system needs a strong foundation to lift everyone up. It's about building a framework that is both productive and durable.
Now, Mark, let's look at a sector that affects every single human being in a country: healthcare. This is often where political debates get the most emotional because we are talking about human lives, well-being, and longevity.
Right. And if we look at it through the traditional spectrum, the left heavily advocates for universal healthcare or a single-payer system. Under this framework, the government funds healthcare through taxation, ensuring that every citizen has equal access to medical treatment regardless of their income.
The clear benefit there is social stability. No one goes bankrupt over a medical bill. But the classic critique from the right is that single-payer systems can lead to massive government bureaucracies, higher tax burdens, and incredibly long wait times for elective procedures.
Exactly. The right-wing perspective prefers a privatized healthcare model driven by market competition. The argument here is that private insurance providers and independent hospitals compete for customers, which naturally drives up the quality of care, fuels medical innovation, and offers faster access to specialists.
But then, of course, the challenge on that side is ensuring affordability so that vulnerable populations aren't left behind. So, if we put on our stoic lenses, Mark, how do we look past the binary choice of totally public versus totally private?
A stoic, pragmatic approach looks at hybrid models. Many of the most successful countries in the world use free market competition to run high-quality hospitals and insurance networks, but they use targeted state subsidies to make sure the poorest citizens can afford coverage. It's about designing a system that values both economic efficiency and human dignity.
Mark, let's pivot to a topic that shapes the entire future workforce of a nation: education. When we talk about how people move up in the world, the term meritocracy always comes up.
Absolutely, Sarah. A pure meritocracy is a system where power, wealth, and positions are earned through individual talent, effort, and achievement, rather than through inheritance or social class. This aligns heavily with right-leaning values, where the focus is on equality of opportunity, giving everyone a fair starting line and letting individual drive determine the finish line.
Right. It celebrates personal accountability and excellence. However, the left-wing critique points out that if the starting line isn't actually fair, for example, if public schools in low-income neighborhoods lack resources, then a pure meritocracy becomes an illusion. Their focus tends to tilt toward equality of outcome, using state funding to level the playing field.
And once again, if we strip away the emotional bias and look at this like Stoics, we see that these two concepts don't have to destroy each other. A nation thrives when it is fiercely meritocratic because you want the most qualified doctors, engineers, and software developers handling complex systems.
Exactly. You want competence. But a pragmatic Stoic also recognizes that to get the absolute best talent out of a population, you have to cast a wide net. That means investing heavily in high-quality foundational education so that a brilliant kid from a humble background has the tools to compete on pure merit.
Spot on. It's not about forced equality at the end of the race. It's about making sure the starting line is robust enough that real merit can shine through. When you combine equal foundational access with a system that genuinely rewards hard work, the whole country wins.
Mark, let's move into a fundamental pillar of any civilization: safety. Without a safe environment, businesses can't open, families can't thrive, and nobody can focus on their personal growth.
Exactly, Sarah. This is where the right-wing philosophy places a massive emphasis on the rule of law and robust law enforcement. The core belief here is that swift, consistent justice and visible policing act as a powerful deterrent against crime, maintaining the public order necessary for a free market and a stable society to function.
Right. It focuses on protecting the community and holding individuals accountable for their actions. On the other side, the left-wing perspective often focuses heavily on systemic reform and rehabilitation. Their argument is that crime is frequently a symptom of deeper socioeconomic issues, like poverty or lack of opportunity, and that the justice system should focus on breaking the cycle of reoffending.
Both points have immense validity. If we look at this like Stoics, we look past the emotional shouting match of tough on crime versus defund and reform. A pragmatic government asks, what actually keeps citizens safe while preserving their constitutional rights?
Exactly. It's a balance. A Stoic approach recognizes that you need a firm, unyielding commitment to public safety because an unsafe city hurts the most vulnerable populations first. But you also implement smart, data-driven rehabilitation programs in prisons so that individuals can reintegrate and become productive members of the economy.
Precisely. True strength isn't about being overly punitive. It's about being effective, fair, and consistent. When law enforcement operates with high standards of competence and the community trusts the system, you achieve a stable environment where everyone can thrive.
Well, Mark, we have covered a lot of ground today. We looked at economics, healthcare, education, and public safety. And what I love most about this conversation is that we proved you can look at complex political ideas without shouting or getting defensive.
Absolutely, Sarah. It's completely liberating. When you use a stoic framework, you stop treating politics like a football match where your team has to win at all costs. Instead, you start looking at policies like an engineer, asking what actually builds a stable, free, and prosperous country for everyone.
Exactly. It's about being secure in your own principles, like valuing free markets, individual liberty, and fiscal responsibility, while still being curious enough to listen to what works best for the common good.
Spot on. So, listeners, here is your challenge of the week. We want you to step outside your comfort zone. Find an article or video about an economic or social policy from a perspective different from your own. Don't judge it immediately. Read it calmly, like a stoic, and look for any data or points that make sense.
It's the ultimate way to expand your vocabulary and your mind. And look, if you love having these deep, high-level conversations and you want to truly level up your professional English fluency, we want you in our circle.
Quite right! If you are watching on YouTube, make sure to smash that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with a friend who loves deep discussions.
And please, leave a comment below. Let us know, how do you stay calm and objective when discussing politics at work or with family? We read every single comment and love hearing your strategies.
Don't forget to follow our TikTok. Thank you for opening your minds with us today. Keep it rational, keep it open.
And we'll see you in the next episode of English in the Wild. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.